To get started, I will be using 3 pounds of honeycomb tripe. This is right under 3 pounds. And typically I'm lucky enough to find it at my local store pre-cut, but today I had no such luck. So I'm going to go ahead and remove it from the package, give it a good rinse, and cut it into bite-sized 1-inch pieces, somewhere around there. So if you are new to my channel, welcome. Welcome to my channel, Gochujang Mama. And if you are one of my faithful followers, you probably know I already have a menudo video out there. I did that a couple of years ago. But today, it's cold. My husband requested menudo. I'm going to do a quicker version of my menudo recipe. And again, like I said, I didn't find pre-cut tripe, so here I am with large pieces, but I do find it easier to clean, and that's what I want to stress. Tip number 1. Wash and clean your tripe well. Basically run it under cold water. Look for any debris. Sometimes you get hair. I know that sounds crazy. And I will also warn you, if you have never tried menudo and you're making it for the first time, tripe does not smell good. And there are a lot of tips to boiling tripe and to lessen the gaminess of it. And there's also 2 types of tripe that I grew up having in menudo. The one you see here, which is called honeycomb tripe, and the second one would be a smooth tripe. Now, I wanted to show you I trimmed off some fat that was in some of the layers of tripe. It's not a lot, but you know, it helps lessen any grease floating to the top of the menudo. So again, I've already cut this into 1-inch pieces. So now I'm just going to rinse, repeat, and rinse again. By the way, be sure to check the description below this video for the ingredients and measurements that I used for the recipe. Now, if you like beef trotters or pig's feet in your menudo, I will say this, you'd want to start pre-boiling those an hour to 2 hours before boiling your tripe. But I'm not using trotters or pig feet today. So here I have an 8-quart pot and I have 5 quarts of water. And this is just room temperature water. It's not hot or boiling. And now what I'm going to do is just my cleaned and washed and prepped honeycomb tripe, I'm going to add it right into the pot. Now what the recipe I'm making today feeds somewhere between 6 to 8 people comfortably. It definitely feeds 4 people with leftovers. That's about as close of a serving size I can give you. You're basically going to end up with around 4 to 4.5 quarts of menudo with this recipe today. Okay, so now I'm going to add salt to taste. I will be adding 1.5 tablespoons of kosher salt. You do not have to use kosher salt. I'm just letting you know what I'm using. It's what I had. You can use the salt of your choice. And again, season to taste. I started with 1.5 tablespoons. I'm also going to be adding 2 dried bay leaves. I will also add 3 cloves of fresh garlic and half of a medium-sized onion, and I will reserve the other half for the puree, the chili puree that I'll make that goes into this pot. Now I also want to add that if you want to take away gaminess and the smell of the tripe to help lessen it, you can also add a lime and some Mexican oregano. I will tell you why I don't. I actually prefer not to add the lime because I feel like the bitter oil that releases from the zest, I just taste it and it adds a bitterness that I don't like to it. So this is why I opt to keep that out. And as far as the oregano, I don't like to choke on it and I like to puree it, but that is my preference. But you can definitely add that now. So I am going to bring this up to a boil just like this and then cook it for 1 hour. And I do want to stress, don't start your hour cook time before it starts to boil because it will throw off the cook time. So make sure it's boiling just like this before you time it an hour. So I'm going to move on to the puree. Here I have 6 guajillo chiles and 3 Chile Arbol. This is the combination I'm using today because it's what I have. I've already removed the seeds, cleaned them, and rinsed off any debris and dust. And then I am going to steep them until they are pliable. Basically, I'm going to take a small pot of water. I'm going to submerge my dried chilies just like this. And I'm also going to be adding 4 cloves of garlic, some onion, and again, I'm going to bring the water up to a boil. And as soon as it starts to boil, I'm going to shut the heat off, cover it with a lid, and allow everything to steep for around 30 to 45 minutes. So I'm just going to continue adding the ingredients to the pot. And while I'm doing that, I want to mention, if this is your first time making menudo, or you're just here because you want to see someone else's version or take on menudo, I like to always let my viewers know, make this recipe your own. If you want to change the ratio of ingredients, if you want to add more salt, or if you want to add other spices and seasonings, do so. Use what you have in your pantry and make it your own, because that's some of the best food that you'll get out of your kitchen. At least that's my opinion. But anyways, so my pot of water is boiling, so I'm going to shut the heat off, cover it with a lid, and allow it to steep for 30 to 45 minutes. Okay, so now that everything is pliable and steeped, I am going to puree it. So here in my blender, I've added all the chilies and onion and garlic. Now I'm adding 1 cup of the boiling liquid from the menudo pot. And I'm also going to add 1 tablespoon of Mexican oregano. Now remember when I said earlier, you could definitely add it to the pot that's boiling, but I like to add it into the puree because it breaks it down and you just don't have these large chunks of oregano floating in your menudo pot. But again, that's just my preference. You don't have to do that. So I'm going to puree this, and now that it's all blended and pureed, I am going to sieve it. Again, that is another thing I like to do. I like to sieve anything that did not get pureed. You don't have to do that. You could totally skip this step, but I like to do it. So I'm going to add another cup of boiling liquid from the menudo pot to this to help it sieve through this wire mesh strainer. Okay, so I'm going to discard everything that did not get blended. And here's pretty much what I end up with, a smooth puree. So now I'm ready to add this to my pot of boiling tripe. So my tripe has been boiling for 1 hour. I'm going to give it a stir. And basically I'm going to add this chili puree, and I'm also going to continue cooking it for another hour. Again, you want to wait till your pot of boiling liquid comes up to a boil and then start your timer for another hour. So I'm just going to get any residual chili puree by dunking it in my menudo pot. And I'm also going to add 2 teaspoons of ground cumin. And I do want to mention this to you guys. If you want to add any other seasonings, there was a time where I felt like it was missing something, and I actually added a tablespoon of chili powder on top of the chili puree and some dried onion powder and granulated garlic powder, even after adding fresh onion and garlic. Sometimes you just got to spice things up and make it your own. So those are just ideas. Okay, so everything is combined well, and again, you just want to cook this for another hour. The name of the game is to get a tender tripe. So it has been 1 hour. I'm going to skim off some of the grease that's floating at the top, and I'm going to fish out the bay leaf at this point. I have 2 in there, so I'll find it. So right now we are in the home stretch of menudo making. And the time will vary because it just depends how high you have your heat. I have it on a medium boil. It's not a hard boil and it's not a gentle simmer. It's somewhere in between. So I'm just skimming off anything that floats to the top that I don't want in my menudo. This is grease. This is basically rendered fat from the tripe. And once I clean that out, I am going to add my hominy. Now I know what you're saying, some of you, because I've read comments from my last video, that true menudo does not have hominy. And to that I say this: I grew up having hominy in my menudo. I am using a 30-ounce can, which has been rinsed and drained, of hominy. So again, if you do not like hominy or you don't want it, just don't add it. I guess it's optional, but for me, that's the way I grew up having it, and I'd be a bit disappointed if I had a bowl of menudo and no hominy. Okay, so I'm bringing this back up to a boil, and I'm going to continue cooking for another 45 minutes or until the tripe is tender, whichever comes first. Okay, so 45 minutes is up and my menudo is done. And as you can see, basically half of this 8-quart pot is full, which gives you around 4 quarts of menudo. So I am going to serve a bowl because my husband requested menudo. It is very cold today and this will definitely warm us up. Now I wanted to show you how tender this is. Basically, if you can take your spoon and cut right through the tripe, that's a good texture. But again, it's to your preference. Sometimes you might want more of a chewier bite. I just want it tender. Okay, so I'm going to add some fresh onion. I'm going to add some chopped cilantro, some jalapeno, a hint of lime, and that is pretty much the perfect bowl of menudo. And actually my husband's hungry, so he's going to dive into this as soon as I'm done. So I can't say that this recipe is a quick one, but it's pretty much easy since I didn't use pig feet or beef trotters. It lessened the cook time of making a pot of menudo, and it was a smaller amount. I hope you give this recipe a try. I hope you like it, and thanks for watching.